Today I'm here with the Carlow Castle, or the ruins of what was once one of the most formidable castles in the area. Carlow Castle's history is long and varied, and it is a turbulent reminder of the times that Carlow, both in the foundation of the town and its subsequent development. The castle itself was started by William Marshall in 1208. This was following the Norman conquest, and Strongbow, or Richard de Clare, landed an army here at Baginbun in Wexford. Carlow being the major town on his plan to subdue and occupy the whole of South Leinster. William Marshall was a master architect of castles of the period, and this is the prime reason that Strongbow selected him to make a formidable series of defence castles stretching from New Ross in the south, Enniscorthy, Carlow, Athy and on to Dublin. The castle itself, and what you see today, is only the west wall and two end towers of it. It would have been a rectangular structure. It was never more than about 3 stories high, which in modern terms would be about 90 to 100 metres. Some of the base walls are in excess of 3 metres thick. The castle would have consisted basically on the ground floor of vaults or cellars. They were traditionally used as dungeons for prisoners and miscreants of the time, but in Carlow's case they were used primarily for the storage of documents and historical archives. The papers and parchments would have been stored within linen bags, placed within timber chests, and these would have been staved for a period of time and would have been a substantial library of the time. Other parts of the vaults would have been used as the castle armoury. We're told, but from records, that there would have been in excess, and during troubled times, of 500 soldiers on duty here. The first floor would have been given over to the likes of Philip Beauchal, who was a steward or a seneschal of the keep of the castle of Carlow. He would have shared the first floor with a grand hall. The grand hall would have been a meeting place, but also a place for dining, fine dining and entertainment. On a dais at the top of the hall, he would have sat there with many prominent officials of the area and burghers of the town, and the major commerce individuals of the area. Further down the hall would have been designated areas for lesser officials, depending on their rank and status within the structure of the castle. Soldiers, servants and the workers within the castle themselves would have found themselves outside the keep. Their accommodation consisted of shanty shacks, tents and the like that would have been stabled outside the keep against the outer skirting wall. Carlow's turbulent history meant that, unfortunately, many of the animals, livestock and soldiers were at serious risk of attack by what was termed at the time the Wild Irish, who were just over the river in the natural boundary of the River Barrow. The Barrow itself was never bridged until the 1563, some dispute it and say in 1593. Prior to that it was purely a ferry transporting soldiers, goods and chattels across the river. There was actually, well recorded in history, that Loughlin Bridge and Athy both had bridges, but Carlow at this point did not, and as I say, it relied solely on the use of the ferry to supply the castle and the town. In 1208 so much development had occurred, and this was the event of the starting of the building of the castle, that the Royal Charter declared Carlow a trading town and received its first charter to do so under the crown of Edward III. Now the castle steward or seneschal, Philip de Beauchard, lived for some 20 years. However, in 1282 he passed away. The circumstances being that he died without issue, which meant there was no male heir to take over the castle, the town, or any of the properties. These reverted to the crown. In 1306, the crown appointed Richard Biggard. Now, Richard Biggard's job was to steward the castle and continue the work that Strongbow had started in developing and controlling commerce. All goods that would have crossed the Barrow from or come into the town at any time would have been subject to a tax, so you would have had a sort of a toll gate effect. The tower, known as White Castle, disappeared off the map very shortly afterwards, and doesn't exist or appear in any of the prints and drawings of the 14th and 15th centuries, but was well identified early on and was a significant part of the tax revenue raising of the castle in the future. It passed from there to when he had died, it had gone to the crown, and Lionel, the king's son, was actually the next inheritor of Carlow Castle, plus the town and all of it became his responsibility. He spent some £500, which at the time was a phenomenal amount, in developing and expanding the castle, developing its facilities and its infrastructure. The reason being that in that year and for 10 years afterwards, Carlow became the financial centre in the heart of Norman Ireland. It had been moved from Dublin down to Carlow, but after the period of 10 years, it was deemed as not the area, not safe, not a protected area that they could rely on. So the financial exchequer moved back again to Dublin. It was less than 50 years, and this is an indication of how much the border this was of on the very edge of the Pale, they called it. Across the river would have been the outside the Pale would have been the area of the Wild Irish. And to prove this fact and to drive home the seriousness of their position here in Carlow, Rory O'Gormore, some 50 years later, not only took over the castle in one of the many rebellions in the area, he burned and sacked the town of Carlow and its castle and its contents. And we're quoted, we're told by the historians that there was a major loss, slaughter, great slaughter to all those who dwelled therein, the castle and the town. So Carlow's history as one of development, of commercial development, of agriculture and trade, but also of turbulent history as regards possession and repossession by various owners. This would have gone right on to the area where you would have had periods of time where Carlow Castle would have been for many tens of years would have been idle and with no conflict. It would have been in a time of between conflicts and wars, a time of neglect and dereliction. The building and castle fell into ruin. The outer skirting wall, which had been in excess of 6 metres high and at least 3 metres wide at its base, would have run around the entire circumference of the site, and it can be still seen today. The roots are there, but the actual wall is long gone. What you see at the moment is only a fraction of the keep, as they called it at the time. It was cut dressed granite, and it stayed in the possession of caretaker stewards for many, many years until 1814, when it came to the attention of Dr. Parry Price Middleton, a psychiatrist from Dublin, whose main aim and agenda was to recreate the castle and reinvigorate the castle. He spent £2,000, which again, a phenomenal amount for its time, would have been in millions in today's currency, to develop the castle as a lunatic asylum. Part of his plan was to actually redevelop the walls and the entrances. This involved a serious amount of remodelling and restructuring of the outer walls, which he tried to tackle with the aid of gunpowder and dynamite. And as you can see today, whatever the good doctor knew about medicine, he didn't have much of a clue as regards high explosives and munitions, because what we have today as a result, after he dynamited and the walls, it systematically fell like a deck of cards. So what we have here today is only a fraction, but still a very tangible and living reminder of Carlow's long and military history that would have spanned the Norman conquest, the Elizabethan wars, Silken Thomas, and the Desmond rebellions. Oliver Cromwell and Ayrton visited this in the English Civil War. The Carlow Castle declared on behalf of the Crown during the Charles II's reign, Charles I's reign. Parliamentarian forces occupied the castle after a siege of 3 months, and again great slaughter and great loss of life and property were had. Again, Carlow suffering greatly as a result of that. So it's a crisscross, a patchwork of history that Carlow has in what we see here today, even though it is probably one of its lesser visited sites. The purpose of this video is a series, one in a series, of getting to know the history and the castles around the town and county. It governed and controlled the trade of Carlow, but not only did it control it, but it encouraged development. Carlow, in its boom years, Strongbow, Richard de Clare, third Earl of Pembroke, was a key figure in developing the south, and particularly the southeast of the Pale of Leinster. Carlow was a major. The other castles in Escorty and New Ross and Athy and even Dublin played a secondary role to Carlow, and as I said earlier on, that Carlow became the financial heart of the Pale, and this mustn't be forgotten. Even the Carlow colours, the yellow, the green and the red, comes from the colours and the standard of Richard de Clare's, Earl Strongbow's pennant. So we have an ongoing link, if you like, in terms of the colours of the football jerseys of today that we see around the town and county. It's an area that has, unfortunately, fell into lapse as regards being a popular tourist attraction. There are plans, we're told, that will be developed at some stage in the future, and hopefully so. This is crying out for development as a tourist attraction, a tourist amenity. People have come to see it. It is untold the amount of history that are in the walls that you have here, and it still today looks out over the majestic Barrow and the southeast Caleshan hills. It's all part and parcel of the patchwork of Carlow's long and varied military history that I hope you will take part in by looking at these videos, looking at these presentations, and developing an interest in your community, because it is yours and mine. Every brick, every stone that you see there has a story to tell in its own way. The history of any community, as we've said before, and particularly in the County Carlow Military Museum, we promote the patchwork fibre, the tapestry of the history. Medical's history, sporting history, musical and arts, medicine, all deserve a rightful place and in the context of the community today. And likewise, Carlow's military history, going back to 1170 with the Norman invasion, and Carlow Castle's 800 years anniversary, is a thing to be remembered and acknowledged and developed and visited. And this is the message I want to give you today. Please visit these sites. They have stories to tell, they have people, interesting people in history, and I hope you enjoy the visit, learn about it, pass it on to your children and your family, and enjoy the visit to Carlow Castle. Thank you.